And of all the years, Jim, your one abiding memory?
I think 1978 has to be it. I remember the crowds were virtually uncontrollable. There were millions of people in Donegal, and that is only a very slight exaggeration.
Jim was clerk of the course, and Billy was back with the Stratus, but look what's at number 2. Partly persuaded by the organisers, but mainly by the thought of meeting the beautiful Marion, the Ballyrain restaurant manageress, Ari Vatanen had returned to the hills, and this time in David Sutton's famous Black Beauty Escort. The 1977 winner blasts through the streets of Glen, but quite frankly the Stratus was not on the pace. For the first time in the history of the event, the story was all Ford, led by the extraordinary talent of Ari Vatanen. We had never seen before, and we may never see again, a car driven quite so quickly in Donegal. Peter Bryant, the co-pilot, was hanging on for dear life. Brian Nelson could only watch as the Fords pull away. This was not going to be a Porsche year. Ronnie McCartney was in the Team PR Riley Escort. But John Taylor was flying. The Maidstone driver was third behind Ari and Bertie Fisher's RS 1800s, and Mick O'Connell had made the long trip north. That's a sideways Hugh O'Brien, but here's the biggest sensation of all. Robert Ward was in 4th place overall in a Sunbeam, and it wasn't even a twin cam, and Big D wasn't far behind him. Bertie was reveling in the challenge. He was the only one who was really staying vaguely in touch with the Finn. Winston Henry is always one who loves a good jump, and this is another Fermanagh talent, Ernest Kidney. The Group 1 battle in '78 had reached a new high. It was all between Castledirk bank manager John Lyons Senior and Sean Campbell. Jim Callaghan also remembers a very amusing high in that particular year.
Ari was the troubleshooter and had a man of vast experience, and he was given the task of taking the European officials around because he knew the black spots to avoid. The first vehicle at the end of the stage pointing towards Letterkenny was a hearse with a coffin. Somebody coming from the west to pick up a corpse from Letterkenny Hospital, and one of the officials, the guy who had the best English, asked Harry, "What is this?" And Harry, in his inimitable style, said, "Well," he said, "we're trying to cover all eventualities here."
Ari opened the Ramelton show, as is the leader's prerogative. Nelson was the Porsche meat in the Ford Sandwich, and Bertie was bringing the big fight to the famous Finn. That's Ger Buckley on one of his rare northern visits. Peter Windsor was now a well-known quantity, and Hugh O'Brien gets into a little bit of bother. Big D lifts a wheel next up, but he also lifted the village pump right out of its roots on one other occasion through the speed-crazy town. There's Winston Henry doing it all wrong. And this is how you extract the maximum out of a Group 1 car, as ably demonstrated by Mr. John Lyons. Jimmy Davidson had got himself one of those unusual Datsun Violets. Vincent Bonner in full flight. Like many of the locals, Vincent's pace was getting faster and faster as the locals gained experience. John Price, then John Scanlon teamed with Brian Brophy, our FIA representative, Speedy Ken Irwin, Mr. Carsport James Greer sitting alongside Ken Bolton, John Galeese. And would you believe that's British Rallycross champion Dermot Carnegie? David Wright always looked spectacular, and David McElroy, another regular person on the Donegal Rally. Brendan Fagan, it's enough to give you a fierce thirst, and thirsts are never in short supply in Donegal. The outcome in 1978 was never in doubt, and the future world champion continued to thrill the enormous crowds on that legendary weekend. He etched his name in the memories of everyone who saw his magnificent display. But it was not a complete success for the Finn, as Marion married another. Bertie put on a mighty performance but crashed out on Sunday, so Ronnie McCartney moved into second, his best showing in the hills. Mick and O'Connell made their journey very well worthwhile with third. And Derek McMahon and Starrett Graham had the drive of their rallying careers to take fourth place in the Sunbeam. The Group 1 sensation was John Lyons. With 2 stages to go, he rolled. Sean Campbell passed the scene thinking Group 1 was his. When the second last stage was cancelled, it looked a certainty. But John extracted the wreckage from the ditch, discovered that it was still steering, and proceeded to take 38 seconds out of the Newry man in one stage to win the category. Kevin and Paddy Deehan found other pastimes. They're now happily married and living in Muckish.
Mighty days, and indeed mighty accolades for the Donegal